fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And for this video, I have a very different kind of Giallo. This is definitely one of the more different ones I've ever seen. And oddly enough, this is one that I bought probably about 9 years ago when I first started getting into Italian films and Giallos. But for whatever reason, this and Argento's Cat o' Nine Tails, which I also had, never got reviewed during my first Italian marathon 2 years ago. So, not sure why I never got around to this one, but I'm doing it now. And it's 1970s, The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. A long but great title. Which, the title, I think, is a play on Forbidden Photos of a Citizen Above Suspicion, which is an Oscar-nominated and/or winning film that it's been said was either meant to cash in on or satirize or build off the success of. I know there is a newer Arrow release, but I'll keep my Blue Underground, because of course I will. I love Blue Underground. Now, I had not seen this since I bought it about around 9 years ago, and I had only seen it once, so I didn't remember a whole lot, but I do remember it being very different. And almost wondering why it was a Giallo, because one of the key elements of Giallo is murder mystery, which this one is not. I mean, there is a twist ending and everything, but this one is more about blackmail than anything else. And it was actually directed by Luciano Ercole, whom this was actually his first Giallo. He would follow this up with his Death Walks duology, Death Walks on High Heels and Death Walks at Midnight, which I do have the Arrow DVDs of. They're on the list for me to get to. I will be getting to those. And it was written by acclaimed Giallo writer Ernesto Gastaldi and Mae Velasco, who I believe Mae Velasco actually wrote both of these. And of course, it doesn't have the credits on them, but I'm pretty sure Ercole, I know, teamed up with one of the writers, and I don't think it was Gastaldi. And has music by Ennio Morricone, and I think this is one of his best, at least Giallo scores that he's ever done. And it stars Dagmar Lasseter, Pier Paolo Capone, Simon Andrew, and Susan Scott. I believe this was Susan Scott's first Giallo role. As I could be wrong, but I think Simon Andrew, this was also his first Giallo role. I could be wrong on that. But of course, Susan Scott was also known for Emmanuel and The Last Cannibals. Simon Andrew was known for The Blood Spattered Bride. And Dagmar Lasseter, I've already mentioned in the Hatchet for the Honeymoon review. She was the one that got screwed by Bava because of Laura Betty. Go over to my review for that, for the story. She was also in House by the Cemetery. Now, this has been known to be the movie that kind of showed everyone Ercole's directional style, and there are some things I really like about this movie, direction-wise, technically, shot-wise. For example, there's several scenes that's almost dreamlike, like when Lasseter goes to meet the blackmailer, which that's what he's in the credits as, the blackmailer, in his apartment, sort of his den of masochism, where the background is all black and in shadow, but not just shadow, but it's very inky black, very solid, almost like a Lynchian dream. Also, there's a a lot of themes throughout this film, like body parts. There's used as art or objects, such as, hands coming out of the wall, which I know the one by the front door is an homage to Beauty and the Beast, but he has body parts as works of art throughout his apartment. But story-wise, anyway, Dagmar Lasseter plays a woman named Minu, who's pretty much a bored but rich housewife. She stays at home all day, never has to want for anything, has everything she needs, yet she's bored. Throughout like the first half of the film, because this film does take several shifts, at least in story and tone, the first half is actually kind of humorous. She has this voiceover narrative where, she talks about her marriage, her love life, even to the point where she's wearing this dress that's tightened up with laces. And there's this voiceover about how she dresses too conservatively. So she talks about undoing the top one to be a bit more provocative. Her husband is a guy named Peter who works at this place that builds decompression chambers. And then the blackmailer is Simon Andrew. And Susan Scott plays her promiscuous, free spirit best friend, Dominique, which she does seem to be kind of both appalled and interested and intrigued by Dominique's sexual liberation and lifestyle. And the film really picks up where she's walking through the beach one night and she's attacked by this man who holds her down and tells her, "Your husband's a murderer. He's a fraud and a murderer." Because there was this guy that was found dead with the bends, which I had to look up what that was. It's another name for decompression sickness. A lot of divers get it when they come up too fast. And so, of course, we get like her voiceover kind of drilling the points home, like he builds decompression chambers. All right, but that's pretty much it. And so he calls her one day, the blackmailer does, saying, "I have an audio tape with your husband's voice, pretty much either admitting to the murder or committing the murder itself. So, you better do what I say or I'm going to bring it to the police." And when she goes there, he pretty much makes her have sex with him. And we get that he has sort of I was debating on saying like a fetish for masochism. I don't know if that's a fetish, but, because she even says like, "Okay, do whatever you want to me." And he kind of scoffs at her and says, "No, I need you to beg, submit." Also, she tries to buy the tape from him, and it doesn't say where this movie takes place, but even though a lot of the dubbing sounds British, they use American dollars, so I'm not sure where this takes place. And even it does kind of show her struggle back and forth between being both repulsed into being forced to have sex to protect her husband, but also intrigued because it's different. And I know Giallo films do kind of play with the theme of women with some sort of forbidden sexual desires or deviations. Even to the point where like it shows his back and she's like clawing his back up. It is pretty erotic. I wouldn't say it's sleazy. It's done in a more erotic style. I love the shots of them in his apartment. That's when we get like the inky shadow backgrounds. Very well shot. Ercole also likes to do a lot of zoom outs to start out a scene or to transition a scene. There's one where she's imagining jumping off a building into some water, and we see her POV and hear her scream as she's imagining falling. And then it transitions to, at the last second, a sugar cube going into a cup of tea. So you do get some neat transitions and scene openers. Also, a couple jump scares or false scares with a turtle. She has a pet turtle that is a foreshadow in the beginning. She's in the bathroom showering and she sees the turtle kind of walking around. And then a couple times when she and or Peter hears a noise in the house and they go to investigate, it's the turtle. It's a little different than the typical cat in the cabinet type of scare. So the blackmailer keeps her going with this affair. She does, I think, take one of the, because then he says, you know, he gives her the tape, but then he wants to keep the affair going, and he presents her with these photographs of them having sex together. When he says, now, you have to listen to me so I don't show this to your husband. So he always has this hold on her, and that's what the title refers to, is these photos of their sexual affair. So she goes along with it, and eventually she does have one photo, and she shows it to her friend Dominique, who I do like the scene where that Dominique then breaks out her own collection of pornographic photos of herself, because I like how Lasseter plays this out, being both disgusted and turned off, but also intrigued. I really think Lasseter did a great job with this role. However, and this is nothing against her, but I was constantly wondering what Barbara Boucher would be like in this role. Again, that's nothing against her, but you know, I still think Lasseter did a great job. I will say the script is a little inconsistent, or some parts are stronger than others. If the script was stronger, and I mean, this is one written by Ernesto Gastaldi that's written some of the best Sergio Martino giallos, so can't really say it's bad. But I think this movie could have been more interesting had it delved more into the inner conflict of being naturally repulsed and violated by the blackmailer, but also longing for it. Because that's definitely what the movie's going for, but it doesn't really delve into that much. So eventually, her and Dominique come clean to Peter. Oh, also, she's always drinking. She has a lot to drink, and she seems to have an addiction to tranquilizers that she can't knock off. Even after when she's first attacked at the beach, she walks to the bar to have more drinks because the police only make you fill out forms. So, yeah, she's constantly drinking, takes tranquilizers every night. So, Peter decides to get the police involved, and when they go to the blackmailer's house, it's completely empty. There's no trace that anyone lives there. The place has been empty for years. And then it kind of becomes like a Polanski film. It then becomes this battle with, is she telling the truth? Does the blackmailer exist, and is he fucking with her? Or is she going completely crazy through whatever reason? You know, her struggles and desires mixed with drugs and alcohol, is that making her go crazy? Or is the blackmailer real? I think that's sort of the main thing of the story. And that's what the third act pretty much is. And with each time she tries to prove it, she just looks more and more crazy. So this movie does change quite a bit, and I'm gonna get into spoilers, but so as I've said before, it's not a murder mystery. I guess if there's any mystery at all, is the blackmailer real, and if so, what does he want, or has she driven herself crazy? Is one of those movies, and I think that's definitely the most interesting part of the film. Excuse me, only because I think there was potential to have a movie about that inner conflict with her, being a bored housewife with these sexual desires, and then being forced into this slave master masochistic sexual relationship that she naturally is against, but is also very intrigued and attracted to. I think if that went into that conflict a little more, it would have made the whole film stronger. But when it turns into the whole Polanski, is she crazy, is she not, act of the film, it gets to be the most interesting. So I'm going to get into spoilers, but before I do, it definitely has enough 70s flair, and Ercole does have a different style of filming, a lot of zooms or pullbacks. The way he designs a shot, especially with shadows, it is very interesting looking. The themes with body parts as artwork or decor is very interesting. Just don't go into it thinking you're going to get another murder mystery. In a way, that's what keeps this movie very fresh and unique. But, yeah, it's not your typical Giallo. It's very, very, very different. But there's enough to keep you interested. So with that, spoilers. Eventually, she is convinced that she's been driven crazy. And she does, I think she takes an overdose of tranquilizers and drinks a lot. At which point the blackmailer shows up and starts to attack her. He cuts her a little bit. He has this long stick with the blade on it. At which point Peter comes home and, this is actually where we find out he's not a murderer. The blackmailer made all of that up long in the beginning. So he comes home, sees the blackmailer on top of her with the knife, takes out a gun, shoots him. He's about to call the cops, and that's when she sits up and says, "Peter," and he turns around in shock, tells her to be quiet. He thought she was already dead. He thought the blackmailer had killed her, which was part of his plan. This whole movie was by Peter's design. He hired this blackmailer to create this "your husband is a murderer" idea, then the blackmail, hoping to drive her crazy and drive her to suicide. But the blackmailer liked playing the role of the sex-driven maniac too much that he just kept going with it. So instead of following directions, and it led to that point. And then, just as he's explaining it, cops come in. He tries to play it off like he broke in. He was going to kill her. I saved her. But they shoot him. And then the final scene with Dominique, we get exposition that he had taken out a huge life insurance policy on her for a lot of money. He's very, very greedy. He would do that to his own mother. And that there was something about the picture that Minu showed her. She recognized the blackmailer as some model or some guy who makes a living with photographs. She does kind of speak vaguely, like she says, you know, he made a living through photographs, but also a living demonstration. And he was well equipped. And that, I think she says something about how her and Peter had both met the blackmailer on like the same cruise, and that's where she had seen some of the blackmailer's photos. And that's kind of what gave it away. And she did not stick up for Minu earlier on, because then she would sound just as crazy. She was going to wait till the last minute to unveil everything. So they take Minu away. I think she detoxes, gets help. And then it ends with the two of them driving off into the sunset. So yeah, it's a very different Giallo. Not really a lot of red herrings at all. You know, it does have several twists. I mean, it goes from being the blackmail for murder to him not being a murderer to just having this sex slave relationship to the guy possibly not even being real to him actually being real and being hired by the husband. So it does have its twists and turns that do make it a very interesting, engaging Giallo. And again, I don't know why I never reviewed this during my first marathon, but I'm glad I finally got to it. I also didn't remember a thing about this movie, but going back to rewatch it now, I did enjoy it, especially for how different it was. And I'm pretty eager to check out Ercoli's two Death Walks films that I've actually heard from a lot of people that they like it more than this. So yeah, I love Ennio Morricone's score. I can't remember the melody now, but it comes up a lot. It's very catchy. Love the way some of the scenes are shot, especially with shadows and framing. The acting is all very well done. Again, I do wonder what Barbara Boucher could have done, but I thought Lasseter did great. And yeah, I thought the script could have been a little stronger with more emphasis on that inner conflict, but it had a lot of twists and turns to try to work into it anyway. It's not the strongest Giallo, but for what it tried to do, it's, you know, sufficient enough, and I enjoyed it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review, and that is 1970s The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. Stay tuned for more Italian horror and Giallo reviews. Thank you for watching.